I'm back at my workstation again in this video because last month I was under home quarantine. I've been doing a lot of contemplating while I was stuck in my room, and I wanted to discuss some of my experiences and thoughts with you. I was infected with the coronavirus or COVID-19. I was still unvaccinated at the time. We already went through the online registration from our local government, which was the first step to get vaccinated here. Once registered, the local officials would then inform you afterwards of your schedule, date and time, and where you'll get vaccinated. Well, 3 months have already passed at the time, and we're still not getting any messages for our schedule, and we're already more than 1 year into the pandemic. So we're looking for other means of obtaining a vaccine as well, asking friends and family, finding other places that offer COVID-19 vaccines, etc. The private company I'm currently working for were offering vaccines as well, but the arrival date is unknown, so it's best we don't wait for that. Speaking of companies, we're fortunate enough to have jobs that have allowed us to work from home full-time, so we were able to isolate ourselves from the outside world as much as possible. But since we still need to go outside to buy essential stuff, groceries and all, I thought it was just a matter of time until I get into contact with someone who had been infected. Again, I was still not vaccinated at the time, so I made sure to be very careful when running errands outside the house. We bought groceries that would last us for at least a month or two, so we only went outside probably twice a month at most. We also don't have a car, so to avoid public transportation and minimize contact with other people, I would ride my e-bike to the mall. I strictly follow social distancing guidelines. I always wore a face mask and face shield when outside, and I don't take them off until I get home. I would constantly use hand sanitizer, especially after touching something. Anything just to make myself less vulnerable. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure if that's enough. After all, one of my relatives had been infected by one of her coworkers in the past, and how they got into contact was basically them passing by each other in one of their office's hallways. That was while under strict COVID-19 guidelines. So I got infected. I don't know where from. As I mentioned earlier, I've been very careful throughout the pandemic, so I don't really have a clue where I got infected from. It started out as a fever. I wasn't really suspecting that it was COVID-19. For most of the people that I heard of in the news or that I knew of who got infected, their first symptom was losing their sense of taste, and that's pretty much a guarantee that you got infected. I didn't get that though, and I was also doing some strenuous chores during the day, so I thought I got sick because of that. But I also went outside that day, so just to be sure, we had ourselves tested for COVID-19 via the RT-PCR test that next day, so I know if I need to distance myself from other people, especially the ones I'm living with. I received the results the next day. I tested positive. And that's why I'm back here at my main workstation again. However, around the middle of my first week in quarantine, my fever was gone, so I was internally questioning the accuracy of the RT-PCR tests at the time. Although I had no symptoms left, I continued to isolate myself and follow the required 2-week quarantine, just to be sure I don't infect anyone else. What would happen is, after testing positive, the organization that performed the tests would report the results over to the local government, who will record this new instance. A staff would then be assigned to you by your local government office to remotely assist and monitor your status throughout the duration of your home quarantine. Since it's the government, the quality of assistance provided varies greatly per city or municipality, as well as between the staff that will be assigned to you. Unfortunately, the one assigned to me was very indifferent to my situation. You see, one of their tasks is to monitor your temperature levels. You will be instructed to report your body temperature twice a day, in the morning and at night before you sleep. The problem is, since it's the government, the assigned staff didn't really reach out to us until several days later into the quarantine. By the time she contacted me, my fever was already gone. Because it was one of her requirements, she instructed me to list down my temperature readings from the day I received my test results up to the day that she finally contacted me. Problem is, I wasn't recording my body temperature at the time. I was only making sure to remember if I had a fever or not on a particular day. So I don't know the exact measurements for a specific day. I just knew if it was above or below 37 degrees on a certain day. Throughout the 3 weeks of my quarantine, she had repeatedly asked me about this and threatened to reset the quarantine back to day 1 if I failed to comply, when I already told her that I only started recording my body temperature after she contacted me. So, in the end, I tediously listed temperature readings that were slightly below or above 37 degrees for those days, just to satisfy her requirements. My father told me that, in those types of situations, it would be best to avoid prolonging it altogether by just giving them what they want, to just think of an estimate and give them numbers to get it over with. That's fine and all, since I don't really have any symptoms anymore at the time. But what if I do? What if I had severe symptoms? What if I was dying? For the actual assistance of the program, I'm not really certain what was on offer. The local government was really vague with what they would provide to the people who had been infected with the virus, or at least did not do a good job with informing the community of their benefits. I've heard that in some cities, infected people would receive vitamins and supplements during their quarantine, as well as food supplies. I didn't get any of that. I tried to ask the staff assigned to monitor me, but she said that I had to contact a separate team for that. Really, the entire process was convoluted. When I was about to reach the 2-week mark, I suddenly started to have a runny nose, so my self-isolation was extended for another week. Fortunately, I was still able to work from my room, so I had at least something to distract me with. I also bought some kits in the Lazada and Shopee 99 sale, as well as built a kit from my backlog, the RB-79 ball in this video. But 3 weeks by myself inside a room with no one to talk to, I had so much time to think about my situation. And it was scary. Finally, I got infected. I said that like I was asking for it for some reason. But, like I said, it was just a matter of time. And it was really scary. Yes, everyone knows that the chances of getting severe symptoms and dying from it was low, but the fact that there's still a chance made it really scary for me. As I go through my social media feeds, I see a lot of my friends and relatives post about their friends and relatives who have died from COVID-19, most of whom died in just a few days after testing positive. Even some of them were already vaccinated. It was unnerving to think that in the next few days, you may get severe symptoms. It was giving me mini flashbacks if I had done enough in my life, if there were any loose ends that I need to deal with. I was thinking of things that I'd want to do and never had a chance to do so. I was thinking of my loved ones and friends. It also didn't help that I was alone in my room. I was also concerned that I was thinking of work at a time like this, that I was doing work for the first few days even while being on sick leave, that it seems I'm more concerned with my work than getting better. It made me reevaluate my priorities. Made me think of my current job, my position in the company, if my current work environment is still a good fit for me, if I have other options, if it was wise to consider to move to another company during the pandemic. But I continued working. I signed in to work like normal on the second week. Of course, my manager was aware of the situation, but I convinced myself that I was fit enough to work because my fever was gone. I'm not certain if it was me just being optimistic of the whole situation, that eventually the 2 weeks will fly by and everything will be back to normal again, or I'm just not taking the situation seriously. The latter is very concerning because that's how we got ourselves into this situation in the first place. After 3 weeks, I was instructed to visit a government office nearby to get my release certificate from the staff. When I got there, they really didn't even bother to check my credentials. They just assumed that it was me and that I was okay, and gave me the certificate after 2 minutes. After that, everything was back to normal. When I say normal, I mean I was able to work in my current workstation again. This month, we were also able to visit local health centers and found out they are now allowing walk-in vaccinations, and we were finally able to get our first jab. Everything was still under community quarantine, but a huge amount of people have already been vaccinated. The local government is now moving on to the next phase of their vaccination programs, which is to vaccinate the remainder of the populace, comprised of young adults and children. Although everything seems to be slowly going back to normal, the impact of the coronavirus has been so widespread that I don't think we'll be able to go back to how it used to be. Right now, I'm just glad that I'm lucky to have not experienced any of the severe symptoms and not encounter any complications. And I also thank my family for taking care of me, buying me medicine and preparing food for me while I was in home quarantine throughout the ordeal.